A quick statement before the show starts. This is the second half of our review of 2024, where we're going to be looking at our favourite physical releases and also our favourite first-time watchers. If you haven't listened to the first half of our review of 2024, then please listen to the other episode released previously. That's where we look at the new releases that came out in 2024. Enjoy. Next, I kind of want to talk about physical releases now, and then we might talk a little bit about first-time watchers later. But what I'm going to do at least is just kind of run through my list. I mean, they're all the films that people will have probably watched and praised already. But I'm really choosing the 10 films that I'm going to talk about, of 10 sets as well, and that I'm going to talk about. They're more chosen because of the treatment they've been given. So it's the extra features, it's the kind of quality of the remastering, or just the kind of ability to bring some of these films together that haven't been available before. So yeah, what I'm going to do is, because for the site, I've split my list into single title releases and box sets. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly run through my top 5 single titles and then my top 5 multi-titles. I do them all together. So yeah, my 5th favorite disc this year for a single title film is Hexen, or I think Hexen, however you pronounce it, from Radiance. That set's amazing. It's one of the most incredible transfers I've ever seen. This is a silent movie from the 20s, and it looks pristine. It's unbelievable how good it looks. And the film's incredible. It blew me away. And then we've got One from the Heart from Studio Canal. Again, looks fantastic.
Great release.
Absolutely loaded with extras. Slacker from Criterion. It comes with a bonus film. It's got loads of documentaries, really good, strong commentaries. I really enjoyed that. Number 2 is Seven Samurai from the BFI. The film is so good, which helps. But it looks great. It's fantastic extras, including a feature commentary on a film that's 3.5 hours long, which is crazy. But it's really good, and he keeps it going. Does not pause. And then finally, number 1, and I think a lot of people are going to have this at number 1, and that is The Hitcher, Second Sight. What a release. It's incredible. I wish I had the actual box set. I've just got those screeners, but I'm tight with my money because the box looks great as well. And then moving over to multi-title box sets. I avoided some of the bigger sets with loads of films in, just because I haven't had time. I might mention some of those at the end. But my top 5 that I did get through, and I've reviewed all of these to the website. And number 5 is Prison Walls, Abashiri Prison 1-3 from Eureka. Really enjoyed that one. Then again from Eureka, I have got Valiant Red Peony, the Red Peony Gambler films. They really surprised me. They were fantastic. I really enjoyed those. Number 3 is Criterion's Val Lewton double bill. So I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim, 2 top films. And the extras were amazing. They have these cool, kind of radio dramatized documentaries that come with them about some of the kind of cast members and filmmakers, and they were the big selling point for me. I loved listening to those. And then number 2 is Eureka's Laurel and Hardy, the Silent Years set. The films aren't all perfect. I'm not the biggest Laurel Hardy fan, but I really enjoyed working my way through it. And again, it's just absolutely loaded with extras that really made me kind of appreciate and learn more about Laurel and Hardy, who I don't know much about. I know who they are, I recognize them, but I didn't really know their story. And I just really enjoyed working through that set. But number 1 is one that came out right at the end of the year, and that is Nothing Is Sacred by Radiance. That was phenomenal. That was an easy kind of first choice for me for box set. So it's a collection of Louis Spoonrail films. It's Viridiana and The Exterminating Angel and Simon of the Desert. All fantastic films. Again, they look great. But really, the extras were just phenomenal on this. There, I think, 3 feature-length documentaries about the director, and they're all really good. And they don't step on each other's toes too much. They kind of look a little bit. There is a little bit of repetition of some of his backstory and things like this. But again, that was really an absolutely fantastic set that I thoroughly recommend. So that's my top 10. The ones I want to mention, a couple of releases that I just hadn't had time to look through, but they on paper look exactly like my kind of thing. That is Shorescope Volume 3 from Arrow. I bought that, and I'm sure I will enjoy that. It's full of wuxia classics from Shaw Brothers. Oh, I can't wait. And also, I've mentioned this before as one I was looking forward to, and that is Eureka's Louis Fouillard. I don't know how to pronounce it. The complete crime serials. It just looks massive. It's got all of his kind of incredibly groundbreaking silent serials, and it just looks like a fabulous set. But again, it was too big for me to kind of review, so I haven't had a chance to actually get through it. But I've got the discs to look at some point, and I'll talk about it if I ever get around to watching the like 20 hours worth of material on there, whatever it is. So yeah, so that's my list of physical releases. And Andy, have you got some physical discs that you've loved this year?
Yeah, I've just got 5, so I'll be a bit quicker.
Yeah, no worries.
So my first one was number 5 was Big Banana Feet. It's the BFI released. It's the Billy Connolly documentary from the 70s, and it's just so impressively restored, because I think it was thought that it was lost, and then this one really ropey copy turned up, and they've just done a beautiful restoration job of it. It's a really interesting film. Really, obviously, you get a lot of stand-up comedy from Billy Connolly, which is funny, but the watching him on tour is really fascinating. It was inspired by D.A. Pennebaker's work, and you can absolutely see that, and it's got a very sort of Don't Look Back vibe. So I really enjoyed that. Number 4, well, you had Slacker, David. I've got Dazed and Confused Criterion release. I just love that film. I think it's a fantastic film, and again, like you expect from Criterion, packed with loads of extras. That just it's the sort of film that really benefits from extras, because it's got that hanging out vibe, and the extras are all sort of. There's absolutely tons of like audition tapes and things like that really add to the vibe. Number 3 is Imprints, directed by Sidney Lumet, Volume 1 box set, which I'm really looking forward to Volume 2. I think they did a brilliant job, and they've picked a lot of films that aren't as well known. I think there's Serpico is in there to sort of sweeten the deal, but you get a lot of other lesser known ones like Child's Play and The Pawnbroker and things like that. So it's and I think Sidney Lumet is a great director, but he's got such a vast filmography that I've still got to find my way through it. So that's really helped him plug in some of those gaps. Number 2 is Studio Canal's Hitchcock: The Beginning box set.
Oh, that looks amazing.
Yeah, loads of really early Hitchcock films. Some of them fantastic, some of them not so good, but every disc is just loaded with extras. You watch the film and then you get all this context, you get experts talking about it, some of them commentaries on, and you just even the experience of watching not as good ones filled out with all that, you just come away with so much. It's a brilliant set. And then by far my favorite set this year, and David, I know you were sent a copy of this too, it's Indicators Columbia Noir number 6, The Whistler, which is just a series of I'd never heard of them before this. It's a series of low-budget noir films called The Whistler. They're based on a radio series. It's about this every film except the last one stars Richard Dix, but he plays a different role in each one. So it's kind of got an anthology kind of vibe to it. And The Whistler is this kind of semi-malevolent narrator who you only see in silhouette, and you hear him whistling occasionally, and it's just so much fun. David, I know you watched the first.
Yeah, I've seen the first one and I absolutely loved it. I keep meaning to stick some others on because they're so short. They're only like an hour, which is a bonus for me. And I don't usually have that much time, so just sticking an hour long film on is easy enough.
Yeah, so you can fly through them in like a few nights. So I think once you've watched that box set, you would retroactively go back and stick it in your top 5 because it's so brilliant. It's such a lot of fun.
Nice, awesome.
Justin, what discs have you been excited about this year?
Well, I mean, as you know, I've reviewed quite a few films, but I think one that stands out amongst many others was 88 Films release of Absurd, which I remember seeing on a really dodgy, Dave, from some of our video weekends, some of the, shall we say, copies from VHS films I have.
Oh yeah.
Now, well, I have one of Absurd, and the quality is very VHS, second generation of that. So to see that kind of restored, and then so many extras, commentaries, interviews, it's just went on and on and on. So that was for me probably the release of the year. But I rather go into specific releases. I just wanted to just give a shout out to some of the companies that have just become these boutique levels to kind of keep your eye on, because you've got Severin who are doing some great stuff. They've just released Rats Nights of Terror, which is a very obscure Italian film, but to give it that much that many extras and sort of that much care and attention is great. And they've even released a tie-in novel for it as well.
Some of the US box sets for Severin are phenomenal this year as well.
They did that Russ Meyer's Vixen trilogy and stuff.
Yes, I'm covering that. Expect to be very soon.
I mean, the thing is that they just work so hard to make these releases special. And as you know, David, they did all the haunts, BRs, folk horror.
Yeah.
They've just done volume 2, so that's something else to talk about. 88 Film is rapidly becoming one of my favorite labels, because they've done From Beyond recently, Eyeball. They did the Pete Walker collection, obviously Absurd. They do their slasher, Italian giallo. It's just gone on and on. And they do saw some very good extras.
I was just gonna say, what surprised me that's been quite nice to see recently as well is, I mean, as much I still enjoy their kind of the genre movies that they release, and especially obviously they do a lot of the martial arts ones that I love, but they've started to do a bit more of a range of kind of how should I put it, kind of classier kind of Hong Kong dramas, and it's been really nice to check out some of these. Like I just today actually just posted a review of Love Unto Waste and Rouge, 2 kind of Stanley Kwan films, and you would never imagine 88 films to release those in the past, but they've really been kind of venturing into some different avenues, and those 2 films are fantastic. So yeah, it's nice to see them venturing out as well, and they're really blossoming these days at 88 films.
Well, they're doing Roman porno, aren't they? And films from Japan and stuff like that. And I mean, some of their slasher films are quite obscure and stuff, because they released well, it's not really a slasher film, but The First Power, the Lou Diamond Phillips film. This is a couple of years ago, but that's a film that I never thought I'd see released on DVD, let alone Blu-ray and stuff like that. And of course, I have to mention Powerhouse in Indicator, because they do some great stuff. They've just got a couple of Aussie films out, Thirst and Harlequin, and sort of slap up collections, and their Hammer collections are great. Of reviews. I've also got Requiem for a Vampire to review, which I'm working on. So I mean, they just constantly point out some good stuff. And of course, then you've got Arrow Video, who just always surprising us. And their recent release, they did one of the German director bought
Jörg Buttgereit. That's his name.
Memento Mori set, and of course, I mean, Necromantic 2, Scram, and the Corpse King sort of thing, and all those are films you just don't think you would ever get that much of a big song and dance release, and they have, fair play to them, and it's great that these collections are being cared for, and they can become they're there as part of history, because that's what worries me about a lot of these low budget independent films now, because they get made and they get stuck on a hard drive, and sometimes they don't ever see the light of day, and that film's forever lost sort of thing. So having these collections that are kind of coming out on these boutique labels is great, and some of these boutique labels are coming out that just started, like Radiance has only just recently started as well. So
I was going to say, and Radiance have been the big one for me. Like I must admit, I have been kind of dominating their screenings. I find it hard to say no, because they release so many interesting titles. I think they really dig into corners that I wasn't aware of, but they rarely kind of release anything I dislike. It's just I'm just hoovering up their discs at the moment. They only came out, I think 2 years ago, I guess, just under 2 years ago. They're definitely kind of my favorite label at the moment. Although all the kind of ones that we cover, again, Eureka came in. You heard my list earlier; they were popping up all the time. I'm also a big Second Run fan. Again, they pick some much more obscure films, a lot of Eastern European cinema, and some absolutely fantastic titles coming out of there. So yeah,
BFI also.
Yes, BFI are a really underrated label. They
Yeah.
they release some fantastic stuff and some fantastic discs. I don't think they get enough love because yeah, and they've been going around a long time and they've kept that standard up.
I think they've been kind of improving as the years go by, especially the past, I'd say, like 3 to 4 years or something.
Yeah.
They've just been on like a roll recently.
Yeah, as I say, the Kurosawa releases they've been putting out now have been amazing. I just put my High and Low and Stray Dog reviews up, and yeah, superb releases. And obviously, I mentioned Seven Samurai was in my list earlier. That is absolutely incredible. Scala is in my top 10 single titles of the year.
Oh, Scala's great.
That was a really good release. Like, there's loads of cool stuff on there that really enhanced the experience. Yeah, again, it's not just because sometimes you can just throw lots of extras in, and it's not always the more the merrier. The more the merrier isn't always the case. Like sometimes you'll hear the same stories too often, or you get a lot of fluff pieces that are just like, oh, it's so much fun to work with so and so, blah blah blah. But as I say, like Scala, it really enhanced the experience. They kind of put things in to help you feel as though you were watching something at the Scala. You got some short films in there and some trailers and all sorts of stuff, posters and stuff like that. It was really good.
Yeah, I want to see that because having actually been to the Scala and been for a couple of film festivals and stuff like that, it definitely had like the UK equivalent of 42nd Street, Grindhouse Cinema.
Yes.
And stuff. Yeah, you could smell the urine and other things in the upholstery. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, Leon. We better move on.
Oh yeah, no worries. No, Scala's great though. I am gonna give that a shout out now. It didn't make my list, but that's great. So I have 10.
It was really good as well.
Oh, I'm glad. Scala. I think I picked it up about a month ago. It was like $7.99 on Amazon, and it was just like the part of the sale. I was like, I'll give this a go, and no, absolutely loved it. So I've got 10 releases. This is a mix of box sets and just single disc releases, but I'll just blitz through them real quick. I actually tried to make sure everything I covered on this is something I also reviewed. So if listeners want to kind of hear my in-depth thoughts on these, please go check out the reviews. But yeah, number 10 is The Addiction from Arrow Video. It's a 4K upgrade from their Blu-ray from a few years ago. Abel Ferrara film, absolutely brilliant film, but the restoration is stunning. One of the biggest kind of upgrades from Blu-ray to 4K, and that Blu-ray already looked pretty good because it was sourced from a 4K restoration. But I find I don't know if anybody else agrees, if anybody else views 4K discs, but I find some of the most impressive discs to actually be the black and white films, like stuff shot in black and white, really, really benefits from HDR, and just it really helps with some of the black levels and everything. And with The Addiction, just it looks like pristine, like a perfect film print. Absolutely amazing, jaw-dropping image quality, and the extras are great too. Although there's nothing that wasn't on the Blu-ray, the extras themselves are still so good that I wanted to give it a shout. Number 9, a film I wasn't huge on, but the release is unbelievable. And that's the Severin release of Santa Sangre, which it came out a few years ago in the States, but was ported over here. I wasn't huge on the film, but the image quality was great. It's weirdly, I was just talking about how HDR benefits films. This is one of a few 4K discs I've seen that doesn't have a HDR grade, but still looks magnificent. I was like, oh, when I first saw it, I was like, oh wait, no, this doesn't have HDR. I was like, that seems a bit strange, but no, the restoration image quality is absolutely fantastic, and there's so many extras. I think it's 3 disc release if I remember correctly, and I think the physical release might even be 4 discs because you get the CD soundtrack, you get the film on Blu-ray, you get the film on 4K. It comes with countless documentaries and so many interviews and just so much behind the scenes stuff, short films. There's so much on there. I went into it all in my review, but it was just it was almost overwhelming how much content there was for a single film. So yeah, no, amazing release. Number 8 is another import, I guess, after the US got it a few years ago, and that's Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull, which was released by Criterion over here on 4K and Blu-ray. Now, again, absolutely gorgeous restoration, and again, shot in black and white, so the HDR just helped so much, because I've seen the film before. I actually didn't own the film on Blu-ray for a long time, so this was my first time seeing it on a physical disc as opposed to streaming on Netflix or Amazon Prime, and it was just such a huge upgrade. And it looks stunning, sounds amazing, and it ports over so many great extras, and there's a couple of new ones too. It's a really, really solid disc, and if you're a fan of Raging Bull, absolutely deserves to be in your collection. Number 7, this one was a huge surprise to me, kind of like Santa Sangre, and this is from Radiance and Grindhouse Releasing, which they released a few about a year or two ago, and it's the film Death Game, which I wasn't too familiar with before this. Some of you might know the Eli Roth film Knock Knock from a few years back with Keanu Reeves. This is the basis for that film. It's kind of Eli Roth just kind of ripped it up, for like lack of a better term. 2 girls appear at a guy's house, get into some mischievous things with him, and then basically torture him. Like I don't know how else to say. It's just a very very out there film, but it was made in the 70s, super psychedelic visuals and everything, and the film's great, love the film, but the release is absolutely jam-packed. There is a bonus feature film included on there, which ironically, as I was talking about Knock Knock being influenced by Death Game, Death Game was influenced by a film that came out a few years before, which was kind of like a softcore film. So that's included on there, completely free of charge. There's a handful of commentaries. One, I think there's 2 commentaries if I'm remembering correctly. One of them with Eli Roth, which again, given his love for like the original film, it's great to hear it from like a fan's perspective, although he's also like a director who's also a fan. I found that like an interesting kind of subversion. And then you get the second disc with so many like hour and a half long interviews with Eli Roth, with the writer, director, all of these people who worked on it. And I think Radiance or Grindhouse for advertising it has like over 10 hours of features if you count everything. And no, it is like absolutely jam-packed. So it's like if you are a fan of Death Game, you can't go wrong with this release. It's so exhaustive in so many ways.
I can remember I was originally, when it came up, I was like, this looks interesting. I was planning on reviewing it myself, but when I saw how many extras, I was like, I don't have time. I was just like,
it's so much.
I'm gonna have to pick it up.
Yeah. But no, it's a great release. I want to actually pick up the hard copy of it because I've got the screeners, but I want to own that in my collection because it's so good, and I love the film too. Number 6 is the Criterion release of Harmony Korine's Gummo. You were talking before, Justin, about how like some of these films get like lost to time and everything, and Gummo was one of those films that I was so worried would kind of have that, because it got released on VHS. I don't even think it got a DVD over here, and in the States it had a DVD from the Warner New Line Cinema Collection release or something, in the same vein as Pink Flamingos for the longest time. I never thought we were going to get a high definition version of this film, but they were like, not only we're releasing it in high def, but we're also doing a 4K disc, and I was like, what? No way. Especially for a film like this. And yeah, no, it's a film I've had a weird relationship with. Sometimes the first few times I saw it, I wasn't huge on it, but it's just kind of grown and grown in my mind, and I think it's brilliant now. And even though the amount of extras on the release isn't as huge or as jam-packed as some of these others, they're really solid extras. They really like complement the film so well. But the main reason it's on my list is because it's something I never thought would have like such a like pristine like film, like a pristine restoration for one, but also just be so accessible. Like I can walk in HMV now. I don't have to like import like a DVD that will cost me God knows how much from like America or something. It's like I think it's so important for film preservation, and that's why it made my list. But it's a great release too. Number 5 is Peeping Tom, the Studio Canal release. I covered that earlier in the year, the 4K. I'd never seen the film before. I've slept on so much Michael Powell stuff, so I really need to dive into some more of his work. But I watched that for the first time and was absolutely blown away by it. The image quality, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but there's so much just like absolutely jaw-dropping like presentations, restorations, and stuff coming from the boutique labels this year. I was just like stunned by the film, but stunned by how good it looked. Like the colors pop like few few films I've ever seen. Like, it's just one of the most vibrant 4K discs I've seen in my entire life. And the film's excellent. There's a great selection of extras. A lot of them ported over from like the old Blu-ray release, but there's a handful of new ones, I believe. And there's like a Martin Scorsese intro because he loves the film. So no, great release from Studio Canal. And then again, Studio Canal coming at number 4 with their release of Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. Another first-time watch for me this year. It's actually my favorite Francis Ford Coppola movie now. I was also able to catch it in the cinema this year because they played it for this new release, and no, blown away by it. Like, it looks absolutely pristine, and there are so many extras. I feel like that's the case for so many of these Studio Canal, like, kind of like a reissue. There we go. Yeah, no, like you said, with one from the heart, just absolutely jam-packed with extras. Great presentation, excellent film, and it's just great to see it make the jump to 4K.
They're another underrated label, really. I can remember, I think my number 1 of last year was one of theirs, was the Brother of the Wolf. That their release of that was absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, a lot of the extras had been other discs, but never all together in the UK. And again, it looked amazing. But they're a really underrated label. I think because they release a lot of stuff, and they release some like a newer, less kind of exciting kind of stuff as well. I think it gets forgotten about. But when they hit the kind of older releases, they really treat it properly. As I say, some of their, I can remember the Flash Gordon Blu-ray. Oh my god, that was amazing.
And
it just looked so nice. But
and they've treated like the David Lynch films with so much care as well. So many. Like, I love those hard boxes they do, because they did that for The Conversation, but Flash Gordon, they did a great Basic Instinct.
The Third Man one.
Oh, The Third Man. Yeah, no, I need to pick that release up. That was a great film. I saw that for the first time in the cinema this year too and loved it. But yeah, no, Studio Canal are great. Very, very underrated label. But yeah, no, Conversation, brilliant release. Number 3, we were talking about the BFI, Watership Down. Had never seen this, but had always been aware of its reputation as something that traumatized children. I was like, I saw that they were releasing it in 4K. I was like, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off now. If I don't watch it now, I'm just going to keep putting it back. And it's like, I almost felt like reviewing it for the site forced me to watch it. I was like, otherwise I know what I'm in for. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. Ended up watching it, fell in love with the film, thought it was great. And it's also just, it's nice to see a traditionally animated, like a 2D animated film, have a 4K release, and it just really works wonders. Like, again, you think of so much animation and how vibrant and colorful some of these films are, and the HDR, like the Dolby Vision color grade and everything, it's just absolutely mind-blowing. I had nothing to really compare it to in terms of old like DVD or Blu-ray releases, but it just looked like absolutely stunning to me, and so many great extras. And like you were saying with the Scala release before, they complement the film. It's not quantity over quality. There's a great like series of archival kind of like making of featurettes, and there's like a great commentary on the release too. But what I really like about the BFI is when they include kind of things from their archive that kind of suit to the themes of the film and everything, because there's like a handful, I think it's 4 or 5 like short films, and one of them's like, I think it's like from the 30s, and it's about rabbits. There's some animated films that were like very short animated films that run for like 5 or so minutes that were worked on by the animators of Watership Down and stuff, and it's just a really great supplemental content that wouldn't make a traditional release usually, but because the BFI have access to these archives of titles, it's just these rarities that you'd never expect on a home media release. So no, absolutely floored by that. Great booklet too. BFI, I know there's a few others like Indicator and Eureka actually send PDFs, but usually we don't get the booklets with our stuff. I always write at the end of like an arrow when it's like, oh, I didn't have the book, so I didn't read the essays, but I got a copy of the Watership Down one, and there was so many excellent essays in there. So like from like every perspective, it's just a fantastic release. Highly recommended.
Indicator and BFI are my favorites of booklets. They're really valuable additions, and too often get kind of skipped over, but they really go, especially Indicator's my favorite. They really go to town with the essays and things in there, but the BFI are up there too. So some of the other booklets are okay, but they tend to be a bit more just like one essay and that's it. But
one
these
essay,
guys,
too many pictures and like stills and stuff. Yeah, I covered Indicator's release of Romero's Bruiser, and that had a great like section of essays and stuff too. So no, great, just great overall presentation. And then my last two, so two kind of circling back with Gummo. This one as one that is just kind of like in many ways like a necessity for physical media, and that was Second Sight's release of the Blair Witch Project, which is absolutely jaw-dropping. So the countless extras. There is a like 2.5 hour long feature-length documentary about the entire process of creating the Blair Witch Project with so much unseen footage from the film. And it's like, if you've seen the Blair Witch Project and you know how it was filmed, almost all of this behind the scenes, never before released footage is basically like you're watching like I don't know, it almost feels like a Spinal Tap, like where it's just like a behind the scenes, like it feels not, I don't want to say like a mockumentary, but there's so much stuff that I'm like, how has this never been seen by the public? And that documentary alone is worth the price of admission. But you also get so many other stuff. There's like, I think it's like 90 minutes of never before seen deleted scenes, audio commentaries, multiple versions of the film, because for those of you who aren't aware, the film was shot on like on video basically. So it was supposed to be projected at like 50 frames a second instead of, or like 50, 60 frames a second, 30 frames. It wasn't supposed to be projected at 24 frames, but because digital filmmaking wasn't the norm when the Blair Witch Project came out, it was blown up to like 35 mil, 16 mil, and all that, and then presented in 24 frames a second, which is not what the filmmakers ever intended. So when Second Sight were like, hey, we're going to release this, and asked if they want to do, you know, the usual interviews that Second Sight do with the filmmakers, they were like, yeah, that'd be cool, but it'd be cool if we got our original version out. So Second Sight, they basically went back and meticulously crafted an authentic like version of this film that has never been seen on home media before, never been seen even theatrically outside of the early festival screenings, really. So it's the first time that the Blair Witch Project has ever been seen in its original like intended version, and for that I think it's just one of the most important releases of the year. You get that, you get two cuts of the theatrical, because you get that old like 24 frames a second version if you're used to that, but you get the brand new restoration which looks great, as well as the festival cut, which has like about 15 minutes of like different sequences, but it's around the same runtime. It's just some scenes were added, some scenes weren't filmed at that point. So you're getting multiple versions of a film, so many commentaries, behind the scenes documentaries. There's like an archival mockumentary that was made to tie in with the film on TV that discusses the origin of the Blair Witch, which is very, very fun, and it's like an hour long. Great thing. Just like some of the best extras I've seen all year, and just Second Sight went to town with it. So, you know, absolutely amazing. I
don't think we mentioned them when we were praising the labels earlier, but they're I mean, well, wow. I mean, some of their releases have just been bonkers. As I say, The Hitcher was top of my single title. It's amazing.
And like already this year, it seems like they're off to a crazy start. Like I'm excited to cover the Cronenberg releases that they're doing. So no, yeah, Second Sight like highly rank as one of my favorite labels, just because they go to town on everything. There's rarely a release of theirs where I'm like, oh, they just kind of like they just put that one out. Like no, they always do what they can to get like these exhaustive like hour-long interviews with the filmmakers, and even something like You're Next, which I rewatched. I wasn't a fan. I didn't really like You're Next, the film itself. But the restoration was great, and there was so many excellent interviews on there, like feature length with every actor in the film and like the directors and all of this stuff. And I was just like, it's worth the price of admission alone. They do great releases. And then number one, my favorite release of the year, and this is kind of a technicality because it was supposed to come out in like November of 2023, but then got pushed back a bit because of an issue. But I'm still counting it because it came out January, and that is Arrow Video's box set of In the Mind of Coffin Joe, which is I've been talking about exhaustive releases this year. This is a 10 film, I think it's 10 or 11, I'm gonna say 10 film box set of a very, very famous like Mexican filmmaker, Spanish. Is it Mexican? I believe he's Mexican. I hope I'm not getting it completely wrong. I covered this set. I should know this. But really, really famous. He is Mexican?
Yeah. Jose
Oh, good.
Marins. I think.
Yes, Jose Marins, yes. And it kind of archives the majority of his Coffin Joe films, although some of them aren't really Coffin Joe films. And he's basically like Brazil's Freddy Krueger, he's been described as in the past. But he is also a bit of a TV host over there. And he's kind of like very influential for like Brazilian, like Mexican horror. And Arrow compiled all of these films together without, I think there's like one missing, Bloody Exorcism of Coffin Joe. For rights issues, but they compiled all of these films together that released from like I believe it was like very late 60s or early 70s, all the way up till 2008, I want to say. So it's just like this kind of just like a whole like museum of films. And while some of the films are better than others, I loved some. I thought some were a bit naff. It's just every single film looks absolutely stunning. Almost everyone has one or two audio commentaries on, which is just mind blowing. There's a feature-length archival documentary about him. Every film has essays about it. They have interviews with people involved in the production, short films, just like every single thing you could ask for. And it's one of the rare cases where it's quality and quantity, because I didn't like total up how much content. Maybe I did in my interview, in my review for it, but there must be at least like 20 to 30 hours of extras or like content just in general on those discs. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And I know there were some issues with, I want to say, the third or fourth film, like the subtitle track wasn't appearing, so they did like a what's it called, like a recall thing, a replacement program thing, which was really weird, because when I covered it, the disc had subtitles. I watched the film, and then they sent a replacement disc before the release came out. And then I popped that in, and that didn't have subtitles, so it was fine the first time. The second time I watched the disc, the second replacement disc, it didn't work. And then when people highlighted it, they blanked the set, and I was like, oh no. So it was kind of plagued with a lot of issues, but like I think now in the wild, everything's perfect. They've included the replacement discs, and no, it's just kind of a very unique like corner of the film, like a film that I wasn't super familiar with before. And like you were saying with Radiance, it's like I always like when I can kind of dive out of my comfort zones and check something out that I'm not too familiar with. And even if like not every film is like a 5-star like material, like amazing stuff, it's so interesting, so unique, and just such a I don't know, just such an exhaustive, impressive box set. And I'd probably say it's like this decade alone, it's probably the best Arrow video release, which is saying a lot, because they've done some amazing releases. But I was just blown away.
Cool.
Can I just correct myself? No, it's not Mexican. He's Brazilian. Sorry.
Brazilian. Sorry. Yes, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, no, amazing release. But yeah, that's my top 10. Sorry if I spoke too much. It was just such a great year for home.
No, don't worry. I'm very aware of time now, but what I'm going to do is literally just list my exact. I did ask everyone to compile a list of their kind of favorite first time watches, and I'm just going to run through mine, because to be honest, I think I've spoken about all of them either on the podcast or I've written about them on the site. But my top 10, this is just first time watches of any film that's pre 2024. So yeah, my favorite first time watches. So number 10, I've got the Valiant ones, King Hu. And then I've got 9, Anatomy of a Fall. Obviously, it's a fairly recent one, but I saw it late on. Then Mighty Joe Young, the original version, not the 90s remake. Love Me Tonight, which made me so happy. Happy End, which is the 1967 Czech film. And there's lots of other films called Happy End, but I talked about that on the podcast. Absolutely bonkers. So much fun. Number 5, Haxon, which again I mentioned already. Number 4, and actually these last top 4 are all from my kind of crazy movie extravaganza that I covered on the podcast. So number 4 is The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Number 3, Right Stuff, which really surprised me. I absolutely adored The Right Stuff. Number 2, Grand Illusion. And number 1 is Cleo from 5 to 7, which I didn't expect to love that much, but oh my god, I adored that film. Yeah, so that was my top 10 kind of first time watchers. Andy, have you got a list of first timers?
Yeah, I've got my top 10 list. I'll just mention quickly outside the top 10, but they fell in my top 20.
Okay.
This year, I went outside my comfort zone. I thought I've got to get to grips with this genre that I haven't seen much of. So I watched a whole batch of kung fu films.
Oh yes.
I was not fully expecting to be blown away. I thought I'm really interested, and two of them ended up in my top 20: Police Story and The Young Master.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to go back to the world of kung fu again this year at some point. But my top 10 in the end were mostly, I think there's only one that's anywhere after 1964. But number 10 is the Browning version, which is a version of the old Terence Rattigan play, very much sort of a film play, but such a beautiful piece of work and so well acted. Number 9 is Patang Yang Kipabang, which is the Jack Rosenthal TV movie. Again, I've heard of it for years, but never got around to see it and loved it. Number 8 is 7 Days in May, which is written by Rod Serling of the Twilight Zone fame, and it's like about a coup in the White House. A really fantastic film. 7, 6, and 5 are all from a season I did across December of Christmas films from the classic era of Hollywood that I've never seen. It's Larceny Inc., Bachelor Mother, and Junior Miss. None of them particularly well-known films, but all really brilliant. I'll definitely be watching them at Christmas again in the future. Then 4 and 3 are both from this year. I decided to try and see all of Michael Curtiz's Hollywood films, which is I watched about 90 films for this, and there's some fantastic little hidden gems in there. Number 4 is The Breaking Point, which is maybe one of his better known, lesser known films, if that makes sense, which I just loved. And then number 3, The Sea Wolf, which was even better. It's John Garfield, Edward G. Robinson, and Ida Lupino. So a fantastic cast. It's a version of a Jack London story. Really, really good. Number 2 was from the Kim Novak box set that I reviewed. It's called Middle of the Night. And it's a lot of people say Kim Novak can't act, but watch her in this. She's fantastic. And it's written by Paddy Chayefsky, who is absolutely brilliant writer. Obviously, he wrote Network further down the line, which should be on anyone's list of greatest screenplays ever written. But yeah, really, really brilliant screenplay. And it's directed by Delbert Mann, who directed Marty just before that, and
nice.
Paddy Chayefsky. So it's like a lesser known kind of follow up to that. And my number 1 was another Michael Curtiz film. It's called Daughters Courageous. I was not expecting to be blown away by this. It's just a sort of like melodrama, very sort of light-hearted melodrama, and it stars Claude Rains, who I absolutely love. I put it on one night and I thought, this will be a nice, easy watch, and I just love it. I'm not going to say much more about it because I without a revisit, I can't quite put my finger on why it had such an effect on me. But it's a real hidden gem amongst Michael Curtiz's work. So Daughters Courageous, my number 1 this year.
Nice,
Great list.
Justin.
Yeah, so just briefly, I'll just go through a few titles which were my first viewings this last year. One which was kind of late to the show was Saltburn, which I think was released in 2023, wasn't it? But that was an interesting surprise for me. I kind of that left me kind of thinking a little bit. But most of the films I saw were older films, like Die Monster Die, the Boris Karloff film, Black Moon, an old film from the 1930s, which was like a voodoo in the West Indies, which was quite interesting. Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires, which I hadn't seen, which I enjoyed. I thought it was pretty cool. And we're talking about last sort of sequences. That's got a cool last shot, shall we say. I enjoyed Horrors of a Black Museum, sort of Michael Gough over acting yet again, but it's very enjoyable horror film. But I also wanted to give a mention to, because I went to, with Andrew Skeets, went to a film festival in Kidderminster of all places, the Jeff Lieberman festival.
Yeah.
And obviously they showed his kind of most well-known films, but also some more obscure films. And I hadn't seen or actually heard of Remote Control, which is a sci-fi film he'd done, and that was really good. And I finally got to catch up with Blue Sunshine, which obviously was made, in the days when LSD was very popular. So that was intriguing, to say the least. So I would definitely recommend some of his older stuff. But there's just been some really interesting titles out there. So I've really enjoyed watching some of his older films, like The Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, Il Vampira, and even sort of Catacombs, which is kind of an old school English sort of psycho thriller. So yeah, there's been some good stuff out there. I enjoyed it. Anyway, over to Leon then.
Oh, absolutely. I'll try not to take too long with this. I watch an absurd amount of films every year, and like whittling it down to 10 was so difficult. But I think I came up with something, and I think my favorite thing about this is. There are probably going to be a lot of reactions like you haven't seen that, but it's like I've seen so many like first time watches this year that I feel like I should have watched 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So number 10 is George Sleezer's The Vanishing, which is one of the scariest films I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolutely terrifying film. He remade it a few years later in English. I don't know why. I also watched a remake, a bizarre film, but his original film is amazing. I want to pick up the US Criterion because I know that has a few more extras than the studio can now release over here. But yeah, The Vanishing, amazing film. Number 9, Babe, as in the pig movie Babe. I've never seen Babe, and I was I watched it genuinely in preparation for Furiosa because I know George Miller had a hand in it, and I was like, I want to see that. I really need to see Babe Pig in the City. I've heard that's great, but no, I was just absolutely floored. And yeah, obviously it worked its ways with me and everything. Very emotional film, but no, I just thought it was beautiful, really well directed, great performances, and just like it just kind of stands the test of time. It's just something that I enjoyed at this age now. I could just see anybody enjoying it. It's just a really easy film to throw on. Just bring the tissues because it's a lot.
I still use the phrase "that'll do, pig" to my kids all the time.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful film. I was speaking before, but Watership Down, I covered the BFI release, and no, I was absolutely blown away, floored by it. I thought it was a fantastic film. I wrote a piece on it for Blueprint, so if you want to hear my thoughts, they're there. But no, great film. Number 7, I think this is 7, 10, 9, 8, 7. Yes, number 7. I actually saw this last month for the first time, and this making the list is first off, it's going to shock so many people because they'll be like, how haven't you seen this? But also, I saw it in maybe the worst way because I saw it at the cinema. They were doing loads of classic Christmas like classics on the screen, and it was a version of the film that during the opening credits I noticed was not only cropped, but it was also pillar boxed, so it didn't even like zoom up fully. It was just like a small box in the middle of the cinema screen, missing information at the bottom of the film, but I still came away from it thinking that's one of the greatest films I've ever seen. So if watching a dodgy looking like print at the cinema wasn't like evidence of how great this is, it is, of course, It's a Wonderful Life. No, a film I needed. I'd had on the watch list for so long. I'd heard it was an absolute classic, and absolutely loved it. Jimmy Stewart is amazing. I've seen a handful of Frank Capra films, but now by far my favorite. I see why it is the Christmas classic that so many people like absolutely adore. No, I loved it. Number 6.
It's quite a sad film until that final kind of scene. It's really
I was like, oh no, this is going in a really dark direction. But it's just one of the most uplifting like endings I've ever seen in a film. No, absolutely beautiful film. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I Saw the Devil.
Hey.
A Korean revenge drama directed by the man behind A Tale of Two Sisters, A Bittersweet Life, and I think Arrow Video recently released his film The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. Absolutely like deranged film, like really messed up film, really bleak, really graphic, really violent, just like everything. It's just like the feel bad movie of like whatever year it came. I think it was like 2010 it came out, but just amazing film. I was blown away by it. It stuck with me ever since I watched it earlier, like very early into last year. Just hasn't left my mind. One that I'm giving it a bit of time before I rewatch it because it's a heavy undertaking. Number 5, The Conversation. I spoke about that briefly before. Excellent film. Favorite Francis Ford Coppola film. Just
one of my
absolutely great paranoia thriller. Just like unbelievable, and great Gene Hackman performance too. Number 4, this was one that a friend recommended because he'd been talking about watching it forever. Because sometimes I'll watch films on Call with people. I'll get the Blu-ray, they'll get the Blu-ray, and I watched it with a pal over Call, and it was The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover by I think,
Oh yeah.
Greenaway. And oh my, talking about like deranged films. This is one of the most like out there films I've seen in quite some time. But it's just absolutely like stunning to look at. Like it looks like a stage play. It's got some amazing performances in, and it's just something that, because similar to I Saw the Devil, just hasn't left my mind since I watched it. The only downside was I watched the UK Blu-ray, but I think it was Fabulous Films or Medium Rare, and it's got like a fairly old print, no extras, no subtitles, which I like watching films with English subtitles when I can. So I'm hoping a label gives it either a 4K or even just a really nice nifty Blu-ray release, because it is a film that deserves that kind of like packed out release, or just like a pristine new restoration. But excellent film.
Have
Number
you
3.
seen any? Sorry, have you seen anything else of Peter Greenaway's work?
I don't think so. No, I don't.
I've not seen many. I must admit, I still haven't seen The Cook, the Thief, and the Wife, and the Lover.
Oh, it's great.
But I've seen a couple of them, and I think it's a director I avoided because he always seems super art house. But actually, the more I've watched, I actually really like his films. As I say, the Draftsman's Contract is the big one. I saw that recently. That's fantastic, and the Blu-ray is superb for that one. The other slightly less well-known one that I've seen that I actually enjoyed quite a great deal is I'm trying to remember the name of it now. The Belly of an Architect. It's not one of his kind of. But again, I've not seen many of his other ones, so I'm probably blown away more by some of the others. But that's the first one I saw, and I think some people say how it's a bit more accessible than some of his other films. But I enjoyed that quite a lot. And again, it looks incredible.
Yeah, I highly recommend The Cook, the Thief, Wife, His Wife, and Her Lover.
I've got an old DVD of it somewhere, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely just like unlike anything else I've ever seen. I always like when a film just kind of just shows me something that is just completely just like unique, and excellent film. Number 3, this is one that it's weird because it's a film, but it's also kind of a continuation of a TV series. But it's a Neon Genesis Evangelion, The End of Evangelion. I watched through the entire series, and then mainly because I wanted to check this off, because it's something that I've heard excellent things about, and it's kind of the show had I believe it was 26 episodes, and this is kind of a remake of those final 2 episodes, but it's feature length, and it's something that just absolutely floored me, and I've been kind of obsessed with since I watched it. I've rewatched it a handful of times, and even though it's like maybe one of the bleakest films maybe I've ever seen, it's also so full of hope and optimism at the same way. It's gorgeously animated. It has an original song attached to it, written by the director Hideaki Anno. I'm really awful with pronunciation. I hope I didn't butcher that. But there's like an amazing song attached to the film. It's just amazing, like one of a kind film that again made me feel things that few films have ever made me feel. Was absolutely blown away by it. Speaking of crazy films that made me feel unlike others, number 2 is Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Express. Holy, amazing film. I've rewatched that one a handful of times. I actually rewatched it and showed it to a friend on Wednesday or Thursday, maybe. It might have even been Friday. It was super recent, but I just rewatched it the other day. Just one of the most kind of I don't know, heartfelt and sweet and just kind of like relaxing films I've ever seen. Like, it's just something that I find so like comforting, because the premise itself feels like something that's really dour and miserable on the surface, but there's such kind of a carefree and just like happy-go-lucky kind of approach to it about heartbreak and stuff like that I just find so infectious, and I love revisiting it because it focuses on like 4 different individuals, and 2 of them are police officers who are kind of dealing with heartbreak, but it's portrayed in such like a comical way that it never like beats you over the head. It's not like Manchester by the Sea or something where it's so bleak and miserable. It's something that it's just so fun, I guess. And I don't know. I feel such like immense joy watching that film. And no, it's like a comfort blanket kind of movie for me now. Absolutely love it. And it's also just cool because Wong Kar-wai is just a really cool filmmaker. And then number 1, not only my favorite first time viewing of last year, but like genuinely cracked my top 5 of all time. Just in terms of I've rewatched it a handful of times, and it's just one of those films that it's just kind of, you know, when you watch a film and it just kind of, you're like, no, this is one of the greatest films ever made, and that is Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh yeah.
Genuinely like perfect film through every single frame. Favorite Pacino performance by a country mile, and he's been in so many excellent films. The premise is great. It's got loads of great comedy to it, which I wasn't expecting, because like you think of the premise, you're like, great thriller, but great performance. John Cazale, I forget how you pronounce his name, but the other actor in the film, the co-lead, he's amazing. He had such a unique career. He was only in 5 films, and each one of them was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. But yeah, no, just amazing dynamic, great character work. It feels like a stage play, which is what I said about The Cook, the Thief as well. But it's just got such a great energy to it. It's really progressive and kind of has just aged like miraculously, kind of dealing with like subjects that are so like present now. Like we were talking about some films with like a transgender kind of identity, stuff like that. There's like a character in the film who's transgender, and it's not treated as like a joke, which you'd expect for in a film from the 70s. Like it's treated with such kind of just like grace, and like I don't know, it's just such a beautiful film, but then it's also just really like a high octane, really thrilling. It's a great drama. It's just everything. It's just like everything cinema could be. I absolutely loved it, and just one of my favorites ever now.
Still to this day, if there's ever anything that I perceive as unjust, I respond to it by going, Attica! Attica!
Attica is such a great way to just, yeah, no. Oh god.
Oh, I do have to mention, I think it's John Cazale. Is it? I think
John
it's
Cazale. That's it. Yes.
But he's just it's always the like what could have been actor, because he's so good. And if you look at his, because he tragically died of cancer when he was 42, which is just horrendous. Because you look at his, I mean, you might have said it's lucky because of the films he was in, but he's nobody has a career as strong as his when you look at what he was in. The only films, ignore the shorts and TV series in, the only credits he's got are Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2, Dog Day Afternoon, The Deer Hunter. It's like, this is insane.
Insane. Yeah, like no one's ever going to have like a track record like that. Never.
And he was
so good as well. He's so good,
wasn't he?
Yes.
No, it's just amazing. And no, he's just absolutely brilliant in the film too. It's something that like, it hasn't left my mind. Like I say that about a lot of stuff, but it's just something I'll think back to like almost like every other day. I'm like, that's so good. And I must have watched it like 4 or 5 times last year, just being like, hey, I know someone. I'll show my mum or I'll show my best friend. I'm like, hey, you've got to see this. How have you not seen this? And I don't know. I just absolutely loved it. It makes me want to dive more into the work of Sidney Lumet, which I know, like you were saying, Andy, there was was it an imprint box set that released last year? Yeah, it makes me want to pick that up and like dive into it, because I've seen 3 or 4 of his films, and I've never seen a film of his where I was like, that was a bad film. And it's like, I still need to see like Serpico. I still need to see some of the more underground ones, like you said. I think Child's Play, which I even think Vinegar Syndrome are now doing a release of Child's Play. So like, it's one of those he's one of those directors that I really need to dive into, because he just seems like a master.
Network and Network,
oh god,
running on M3 too, that I would definitely say.
Yeah, no, Network's great, because the ones I've seen, I think I've seen 12 Angry Men, Network, Dog Day Afternoon, and Find Me Guilty. I don't know if anyone's seen that one.
I bought that recently. I picked it up really cheap on I think it's MVD or something.
Yes, the MVD sale. Yeah. No, that's a good film. Weird how like committed Vin Diesel of all people is in that film, but he's really good in it, which you wouldn't expect when you see as like big blockbusters, and you're like, oh, this guy's in a Sidney Lumet. What? But no, he's really good in it. No. But no, I really need to dive into his work. But yeah, that's my top 10. I feel like I spoke so much. Do you want to talk about honorable mentions, or have we spoken for too long today for 2024?
I'll let you list a few, just the names maybe. But
names only. I'll skim through these so fast. So for 2024 films, Red Rooms, amazing. Long Legs, reviewed it. Furiosa, incredible. Chasing Amy, great documentary. Aggro Drift by Harmony Korine, bonkers. Strange Darling reviewed it, excellent. Lisa Frankenstein also reviewed it, excellent. Christmas Eve at Miller's Point, I think that made Mark Commode's worst films of the year list. I loved it. Juror number 2, one of Clint Eastwood's best, which is saying something because that's just wild. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Wicked. I thought Wicked was really good. I really liked it. But yeah, there we go.
I just got a couple to mention. I think because I think a lot of people really like this film, but no one's mentioned it. I really enjoyed Rebel Ridge.
Oh,
Nice.
I need to
Yes,
see
I
that.
really enjoyed that. I
Yeah, I
did
need to
see
see
that.
that.
Yes, I enjoyed
And
that.
I want to mention Monster, the Hirokazu Koreeda film, because Koreeda I've had a weird journey with, because the first film I saw by him was Our Little Sister, which is, I think it's not exactly the best one to start with. And then I saw Shoplifters, which I liked, and then I saw Monster, which I loved. And since having loved Monster, I watched Afterlife, which is my favorite of his films. It's absolutely brilliant. And the other one I want to mention, which is I haven't heard many people talking about, but it's so much fun, is Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal.
I need to see this.
Which is such a good fun film. I really enjoyed that.
I really want to see that. No, that's on Mubi now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was gonna say the looking at kind of my the top 15 to the 5 that didn't make my top 10. I think most of them have been mentioned, but the one that hasn't been mentioned, that I'm not sure if it's had much release, it's another one that I caught like at an exhibitor screening. That's a film called Amagloria. And it's just a beautiful little film about it's I think she's like 5 years old. It's a really young girl who she has a kind of a living nanny who she's really close to, but the living nanny has to move back to her home country. She was an immigrant. She moves back to I don't have the details on me now. I can't remember exactly where. But she moves back home, and obviously this little girl is heartbroken. She's been almost like a second mother. Like a mother to her. I think her mother's died. She only lives with her dad, and she's been looking after her. And she's devastated. But what she does is she's allowed to go on holiday, and she stays with the nanny for a summer holiday. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful little film. Again, I think Andy mentioned this earlier. Any film about like parenting or children and stuff, I'm the same. They destroy me, and this destroyed me. But it's very sweet. It's not it's just a really sweet, beautiful, beautiful little film. And yeah, Andy, I think it'd be right up your street. You should definitely check it out. I don't know how available it is. Again, I saw it at one of these funny screenings, but yeah, Amagloria, definitely one to get for.
Brilliant.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to add, Justin, that's not been mentioned?
No, I mean just one film I did watch this year, but I wasn't sure how I was going to react to, was the remake of Roadhouse.
Okay.
Which again, it was one I wasn't really looking forward to, but when I caught it, I think it was on Amazon. I thought it was okay. It was a different entity than the original Patrick Swayze film with Jake. Is it Jake Gyllenhaal? Yeah, it was okay. It didn't knock me for 6, but it wasn't awful either. So it was okay. And I just was going to say, but something I have started watching was Pennyworth, the TV series. Well, it's not a TV series. Right. Basically about the Bruce Wayne's butler, but before he became Bruce Wayne's butler. So they did 3 seasons. I've only seen the first 2, but that's actually worth checking out, because it's like an alternative history of Britain where you've got fascists and left-wingers sort of fighting on the streets, and it's quite up and now in some ways. So it's quite an interesting kind of comic book adaptation, but quite serious as well. So anyway, worth a look.
Oh, awesome.
Cool. Nice. Well, I'll probably tie things up. I was going to talk about what we're looking forward to next year, but I'm just aware we're running really, really late. So I might skip that unless anyone's really desperate to kind of big up anything that's coming out. The main thing for me is just The Brutalist, because it's not out.
Yeah, I want to see The Brutalist.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm just going to tie things up now. So is there anything anyone wants to plug? Anything they've written, done on the Blueprint or elsewhere that they want to shout out about?
I got loads of reviews coming soon for Blueprint review. There's so many, I could list them all, but there are so many. I've requested so many discs already, but I was looking at the list I posted because I have like a Google Keep notes of like all the films, and I'm like,
Oh, I'm the
this is
same. I
going
use
to
the
be
same thing.
absolutely
Yeah.
wild. Yeah, but no, just expect a lot of reviews this year, as always. It just seems like the physical media train, or the boutique train, I should say, is never going to stop, and we're going to get every film on 4K and Blu-ray. So I think it's going to be yet another just excellent, like just jam-packed year for Blueprint review.
Yeah, I mean,
long live physical media.
Long live physical media.
Yeah, I mean, I said to myself, because I've had some changes some changes with work, which means a really regular job that I used to have gave me the kind of time to get a lot of my reviews done, and that's gone. That's ended now.
Oh.
So I'm not going to have as much time as I used to. But so I've said to myself, oh, I need to review less, but I can't stop saying yes. I keep, it's awful. I'm having to cram things in now, but I'm getting to be a well-oiled machine now. I was very impressed by myself how quickly I wrote my review of Rouge and Love and to Waste this morning. I'd written a lot of notes, which helps, but it just flowed out of me, and I'm actually quite pleased with how it turned out as well. But yeah, so I need to keep that pace up because it's going to be a struggle.
Well, I might actually get a shot at some of those classic Hollywood and animation DVDs that you're always.
You might, although as you say, there's so much good stuff coming out. It's just really hard to say no. I've turned down so many things that I would normally be all over, just because there's so much good stuff coming out, and it's just physically impossible to keep on top of it all. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Well, yeah, thanks a lot for joining me tonight. And yeah, it's been a long one, so apologies if anyone wanted to get to bed early because it didn't happen. I'll try and get this up as soon as I can. But it's been a pleasure. And as we say, it's been a strong year, and it's nice to hear your thoughts on what you enjoyed most this year. It's been nicely varied as well, which is good. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.